By 2050, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations predicts that the global demand for meat will increase 73%. Part of this rise in meat consumption can be attributed to the United States, who is found by the United Nations to have the highest daily meat consumption per person worldwide in a 2019 report. Interestingly enough, data from the USDA indicates that as many as 99% of animals raised for meat come from factory farms, also known as CAFOs or concentrated animal feeding operations. But first, what are factory farms? As defined by the Environmental Protection Agency, factory farms are, quote, livestock operations that raise 1,000 or more animals in confined conditions, end quote. These farms put animals into small, tiny, compact, and unsanitary areas to produce meat at higher rates and lower costs. According to Harvard Law School researcher Charlotte Blattner, CAFOs additionally treat their animals with antibiotics and growth hormones to further expedite meat production.
Jonathan Anomaly, an economics professor at Princeton, explains that factory farms emerged as a result of competition to produce meat at the lowest possible cost. The nutritional value provided by low-cost meat is one of the reasons why factory farms have remained strong in the food industry. According to Cedars-Sinai Hospital, meat contains complete proteins with all 9 essential amino acids required for the body to function. This is why many Americans, especially low-income ones who rely on protein to stave off hunger, rely on this low-cost meat.
But at what cost? Although consumers benefit from the low cost of meat, the cost reduction strategies that the CAFOs use severely damage the environment. Rolf U. Holden, a sustainability professor at Arizona State University, says that the large volume of waste is damaging to the environment and degrading to human health.
To be more specific, according to the USDA, CAFOs produce around 500 million tons of raw waste annually. According to Voices on Bioethics, a peer-reviewed journal, they produce 1 million tons in just a day. Michelle Johnson-Weddard from the Department of Health and Human Services explains why this is problematic. A CAFO housing 5,000 pigs generates the same amount of waste as a town of 20,000, but that CAFO lacks a sewage waste treatment plant to deal with the waste. Instead, according to Foodprint, a nonprofit providing science-based education, animal waste is typically stored within large open pits called waste lagoons that are usually separated from waterways using inadequate barriers. These waste lagoons, combined with the confinement of thousands of animals together in small areas, eventually pose an environmental hazard.
This begs the question, to what extent does animal waste from factory farms in the United States impact the environment? This question is important because in 2001, an EPA report found that there were 376,000 CAFOs. This number has risen to over 450,000 CAFOs in recent years, meaning that the amount of waste produced every year has been ever increasing.
One of these implications is eutrophication. When these lagoons flood, the runoff leads to water pollution, which further leads to this eutrophication. This is the process by which bodies of water become enriched in excess nutrients, particularly phosphorus and nitrogen, which can also lead to algal blooms and dead zones, which ruins ecosystems.
Furthermore, this runoff can threaten citizens by polluting drinking water with lethal doses of phosphorus and nitrogen. Peter Singer, a bioethics professor at Princeton, describes how in the Delmarva Peninsula, where 600 million chickens are raised annually, 1 in 3 wells now have nitrate levels above the federal drinking water standards. Additionally, antibiotics can leach into bodies of water, putting citizens at risk of antibiotic resistance, which causes 2.8 million untreatable infections per year and is classified by the CDC as an urgent global health threat.
Not only does animal waste release toxic chemicals into the waterways, but also into the air in the form of gas emissions. The EPA mentions that animal agriculture contributes to 2 million tons of manure-based emissions annually. Additionally, a study by the USDA found that it contributes to 37% of the total methane emissions and 67% of the total nitrous oxide emissions, which is noted as having 300 times the global warming power of carbon dioxide. But these toxic fumes, combined with deadly chemicals that are found in this waste, ultimately lead to poor air quality. It also impacts nearby biodiversity, as due to the inhalation of these chemicals, the species of many animals declines.
Waste from CAFOs can also take a major toll on the health of nearby citizens. The Iowa Center for Agricultural Safety and Health found concentrated amounts of over 160 harmful compounds in the air surrounding CAFOs, including hydrogen sulfide, ammonia, phenols, and alcohols, all of which can have a detrimental effect on the health of citizens. Therefore, it is crucial that something be done to protect citizens from these emissions.
The EPA has two primary regulations that they can use to regulate the CAFOs. The first is the CAA, or the Clean Air Act. The Clean Air Act categorizes different sources of pollution and determines how much emissions is too much. However, CAFOs are not listed as a categorical source. Next is the Clean Water Act. The Clean Water Act works similarly to the Clean Air Act. However, they do classify CAFOs as a point source, but there's not enough research done to accurately regulate them, especially in antibiotics. Therefore, neither are super effective.
From our research, we pulled three main conclusions. One common solution is going vegetarian. Since it became popular in the 1970s, the benefits of vegetarianism have pushed more people towards this dietary lifestyle. As recommended by the World Health Organization, if U.S. consumers cut back their meat habit by about 40%, they'd be doing their part to slash global food-related emissions by nearly a third. In turn, this diet would help to mitigate environmental effects from meat. Although plant-based meat alternatives have many environmental benefits, traditional meat remains the most accessible source of protein for budget-conscious Americans. According to the Good Food Institute, plant-based meat alternatives range from 2 to 4 times more expensive than that of regular meat. Lots of Americans depend on this low-cost protein provided by factory farm meat, and this dependency will only continue to increase.
However, some take an alternate perspective on waste. Christopher Akinbile, a researcher for the peer-reviewed Soil and Water Journal, found that when waste is used as fertilizer, soil tilt and aeration improve, which are both qualities influencing the fertility of soil and thus the agricultural output of farms. Therefore, if waste is used as fertilizer, farms can improve their output of produce and stores can lower the cost of said produce, making the vegetarian options previously mentioned more accessible to consumers. However, this solution does have drawbacks. It could allow nutrients to leach into water if the fields are overwatered, and it would additionally require CAFOs to stop the usage of antibiotics on animals, as the antibiotics could also leach into water and threaten the health of citizens.
The final solution we identified was enhancing the regulations. This would involve including CAFOs as a categorical source on the Clean Air Act and on the Clean Water Act, fully realizing the research needed to accurately regulate them. This would guarantee changes to the CAFO's emissions output. However, it takes time to push these changes through amendments in the Congress. It also does not address the excess amount of weight as output.
Ultimately, we decided that the best way to tackle this issue is to implement the uses of waste as fertilizer and regulate the use of antibiotics, which is previously done by the EU as well. This will allow a better way to manage and store the waste, while also reducing the harm it causes to the environment, public health, and to the biodiversity.
Farmers may protest these changes due to the efficiency antibiotics lend them, but if passed, regulations would have multiple positive implications. Without antibiotics, CAFOs would be required to either reduce the number of animals raised at one time or increase the size of living spaces, both of which would decrease the ultimate amount of waste produced by CAFOs and thus the amount of pollution produced by CAFOs, which would protect American citizens by leaving both air and drinking water uncontaminated.
The only slide that I'm